Hello, hello. Welcome back to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. Today, the beautiful Madi is joining us to discuss the spiritual significance of being a twin, making astrology work for you rather than being at the mercy of it, how astrology has been mishandled in the mainstream space, and so much more. Here we go. Alrighty, my dear Madi. I have known Madi for many years now. She has been such a beloved client for so long. She is the sweetest human ever, and I have always resonated with her way of reading astrology. So I wanted her to come on and talk about it because I love it, and I don't typically love the way that astrology is handled. So I feel like she's got a magic little glimpse that everybody needed to hear. Madi is a tropical Western astrologer and human design reader. Her approach blends modern and traditional techniques, focusing on helping people sort the external signals from the internal ones and get them closer to what makes them them. When she's not in a chart, she's a software engineer and an avid bowler. Here's Madi. Welcome to the podcast. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yes, my name is Maddie Kennedy, and I'm a software engineer by day and astrologer by night. I also do human design readings and been practicing since 2021, I believe. And yeah, I've obviously known Amber for a very long time. I've been getting sessions from Amber for years now, so that's how we met.
Yes. What got you into spirituality?
Yeah, so I think my aunts were the biggest influence growing up. They always were curious about anything that was in that umbrella and were really open to it. And I think my whole family is someone that is very spiritual. Like a lot of my family is like classically religious, but that wanting to know, I think, is what really drove me and wanting to explore and see what was out there and what was possible. Amber, I've mentioned this before, but I've gone down like lots of YouTube wormholes just exploring different phenomena. I think a lot of other listeners probably have done the same.
What got you specifically into astrology?
Yeah, so I am an identical twin, and I think anyone who grows up as a twin can relate to this feeling of like, who am I? Because I think we grow up in a society where society really rewards twins for being the same. So a lot of times, friends, family, people on the street, we get so excited of like, wow, you guys really do sound alike, and wow, you guys really do have these like similar beliefs, interests, the same voice even. And my sister and I looked really alike in high school, so much so that even like really good friends or like boyfriends would sometimes mix us up. And so what happens with twinhood is that there's a lot of like collaborative identity, but it's easy to fall in a pattern of not really putting in a lot of effort to say like, but who am I as an individual? And especially when we went to separate colleges, I suddenly had this realization that I had no idea who I was aside from being Moni's twin. You know, like I had little like preferences that I had that were different from Moni, my twin. But I had never really done the work myself. And then I think being an empath and anyone who is sensitive to energy, a lot of times external signals can feel really loud or heavy. So I remember feeling really kind of like aware of what was expected of me and how other people felt, so much so that I stopped hearing what I needed or how I felt inside. And when I started really kind of like exploring myself, I went down through like lots of different psychs. Like I was in therapy, I studied psychology, but I still felt like there was so much that I didn't know about myself and wanted to know. And so when I started dabbling in astrology and I got a reading done in astrology and then I got another one done in human design, I was like, ah, like there's so much here that I can explore. And I always use like the two frameworks with that sort of prefix of like, even if you don't believe in it, the questions that they allow you to ask about yourself are the gold of like, wait, this thing says that Capricorns do this. Do I do this? Like, this thing says that like a Pisces moon needs this. Do I need this? You know, and then it's able to um again, prompt some like self-exploration that wasn't happening on my own because I didn't even know to ask those types of things within. So,
My dad is a twin. I was gonna say twin flame, wrong kind of twin. My dad is a twin, but because he had his stroke, and he's an identical twin, because he had his stroke so young when he was 7, and it like affected his like physical development. I feel like it forced them to have slightly different paths. He was
yeah,
now a year younger because he had to be held back because he it took months until he could even like eat by himself, and you know what I mean. I feel like it provided them space to hold their own identities, but it's been so interesting seeing them as adults because they are very different.
yeah,
My dad, just because of his traumas and such, is a wild, don't give a fuck, woo, crazy guy. And my uncle is like a family man through and through, you know, works
yeah,
as the president of this like engineering company, very Christian, you know, they're just very
yeah,
different. But because my dad feels so much and is so emotional and doesn't always have the tools to work through his stuff, like nobody gets him like my uncle does,
yeah,
you know? And it's kind
yeah.
of beautiful seeing how, even though I guess from earlier on, they were provided a framework to have their own identities, that like deeper language still persists, which is so, it's just such a cool thing to witness, you know?
It really is. And a lot of times I think of because Moni and I have the exact same astrology and human design charts, I see is like we have the same vessel, and then the spirit in that vessel is different. So you sort of you do see a lot of overlap. Like we're both in tech, we're both engineers, we both have these very similar interests, but then you see kind of a core um attribute of like the body that we're in expressed in slightly different ways. And for example, like your uncle being religious and your dad being spiritual, I think that comes from the same root, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
both curious, they both want to know, and they both feel things.
Yeah, that's actually, that's a great point. It's no secret that I I'm not an astrology girly, but I love how you view astrology, which is why I wanted to talk to you, because when you
Yeah.
talk about it, I'm like, yes, this makes so much sense. I love it. I think so frequently, and we'll talk about this later on in the conversation, but so frequently, I think people put themselves into boxes. And I think, I mean, I'm wondering, even because you are a twin, if that kind of informed this very grounded view of astrology, because in practice you can
Mhm.
see how free will and like certain things can change the interpretation of like certain alignments and stuff like that.
Totally. Like I've had other people bring up that of like, wait, you have a twin and you still believe in astrology? I'm like, I have a twin, and that's why part of the reason I believe in astrology is because I see the patterns are a lot looser to what you're saying, like Amber. Like there is so much free will, but I do see sort of very similar origins and motivations and signals. And that's something that I've really been thinking a lot about where they talk about in astrology how your natal chart, the chart that you're born with, like the exact placement of the stars and planets when you were born, that's just the starting point. And what you do with that energy is completely up to you. There are these principles that I think scare people sometimes around fate, where it's like, oh, like how did like an astrologer predicted that something like this would happen, and then it happened. What does that mean? And I'm like, even if that is a real thing and that certain events are kind of like agreed to in some sort of a soul contract, for example, you decide how you respond, right? Is it if you think like again, if something was destined to happen that was related to like having house repairs, right? You get to decide like, well, did I do some preemptive work ahead of time to take care of my home? So like if the plumbing bursts, for example, like I have funds or like I did some plumbing work earlier, so it's really not that big of a deal versus someone who just neglected the house for years and maybe it is a huge deal, where every step that you take is sort of impacting the future and you get to write your own future based on your decisions. So,
I guess to go into that a little deeper, what is the difference between fate, potential, and free will in astrology?
so Yes, like depending on the techniques, like one thing that's really popular right now is actually this really old technique. So a lot of astrology came from like Alexandria, like 2000 years ago during the Hellenistic period. And there's all these techniques that are kind of getting rediscovered because they were in these like ancient languages, like ancient Greek, now being decoded and understood. And um, a lot of these techniques can try to be specific of like, okay, something related to like partner and spouse or business relationships is going to happen during this exact period, and it could have these other influences. But what I've seen in practice is that a lot of times it depends on the person. Like I've seen this before that some people, especially celebrities and like certain people like I've met, like my bowling coach is one of them, where I'll say like, oh, Astro Weather says this might happen, and then it usually does. And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that clearly was this event that happened in your life, but it could be like dozens of different types of events that fit that description. So it's not always helpful to be like, oh, this thing's going to happen. A lot of times it's obvious that something's going to happen. Like if someone has really poor health, right? And you see sort of maybe like a health related transit, you're like, oh, maybe that will finally like force this person to go to the doctor and get that checked out, right? A lot of the things that are easy to predict are pretty obvious once you know the person well, and then other things are completely random. So I use it more as a tool for what's something to pay attention to, right? It's like instead of being afraid of like exactly what's going to happen, be like, hey, what can I like be prepared for? What can I for example, in ZR, which was that Hellenistic technique, they highlight like peak periods, which are just important periods. And there's these different lots. So like there's a lot of fortune, there's a lot of spirit, but they talk about lot of spirit being literally what your soul wanted to do in this lifetime. So when you're having a really important period for a lot of spirit, you can just say like, hey, like what's coming into my life right now? Because I know this is an important time. And if suddenly you like have this like um inspiration to draw or paint, or you have a new friend that walks in your life, maybe you just like entertain that a little bit more than you normally would, kind of thing. And the idea with a lot of the fate stuff in astrology is that it's going to happen regardless, right? Like if there's something that's meant for you, it'll keep kind of like coming into your life as much as you allow it to. And then obviously it's just how you respond to those events. So I kind of rambled a bit, Amber, but I'm trying to say
No,
is that
that's
like
great.
some people I think depending on their chart, might have more challenges present in their life over the course of their life. But going back to like what your soul wanted, maybe that's what that person signed up for in this lifetime of like, I really wanted to build resilience. I really wanted to know that it could make it through these hard things. And then again, you can always take steps to make the hard things easier. So,
Mhm. No, I like how you describe it because my my issue with astrology has always been I just don't like being told what to do and I don't want to feel like I'm being pushed in a box and told like this is how you act, this is how your life is. And it's like actually I don't think so. I'm gonna choose
wait,
something
tell
else.
me about that, Amber, right? Like what is something that you felt like that put you in a box before with Astro that or something that you didn't resonate with?
I think it I think it's been a lifetime culmination of
Yeah.
feelings. I think when I was young, like horoscopes were a big thing, right? And they
Yeah.
would just be like simple stuff. And I would read something and it would be something small like, oh, there could be a misunderstanding in a relationship. And so now I'm fixating on there
Yeah.
being some sort of misunderstanding. And then if like some little thing happens, I'm like, uh oh, was that it? Is something bigger going to come? I think it was just
Yeah.
more anxiety inducing. And I was like, well, if I just like approach my conversations mindfully, then there's technically no
Yeah.
misunderstanding. So I think it started more in that, like not I don't like to feel like my free will is being taken away. And then I think as I got older, um, I'm a Cancer. My son is a Cancer, so
Yes.
I'm very emotional and I am emotional, but I'm more than just emotional. And
Yes.
I think growing up because I always felt like it was a bad thing that I was sensitive. So being
Yeah.
told that like, oh, you're just a little crybaby would drive me crazy because it's like, well, I feel a lot of stuff, but there's like more to me than that. So
Yeah.
I think it's just more the like mainstream like light stuff just
Yeah.
felt so I felt labeled or judged by it.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, taking it even a layer deeper, because I'm mixed, I'm like half white, half Latin, and I
Yeah.
don't look Latin. And I was always struggling to like be part of the Latin group, or, you know, it's like I feel like I've
Yeah.
always been having to prove like I am sensitive, but I'm not weak. I am
Yeah.
white, but I also have a little spice in me. You know, it's
Yeah.
like this in between space all the time. So I had a very serious aversion to labels of any sort. And that also kind of coincides with fairy stuff and working closely with them, where it's like, I
Yeah.
like not being labeled. Like, I feel like that kind of kicks ass. So that's sort of where I've been. And I feel like, because my mom got into astrology and she did a few, like, she pulled a few charts or something like that.
Yeah.
And even with that, like the way that I approached it was I went through and highlighted, like, if it was like, oh, you'll have issues in this area, then I would take it like, okay, does this resonate? What do I need to change? I guess
Mhm.
I looked at it more critically, so I wasn't taking it as the law of my life, but more like some things resonate, some things don't. If it says there is a problem area, I mean, it'd probably be good to work on that anyways. So, in what
Yeah.
ways can I integrate that, you know? And in talking to you about astrology, your approach, like I said, is a lot more like free and open, where I don't feel so like constrained by labels.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think it should be fun. It's a tool. And I always tell people like all astrology is a bunch of old dudes and ladies, I'm sure, from like thousands of years ago, over hundreds of years, being like, oh, there's a pattern. When that thing in the sky is over there, this tends to happen more. Or these people who are born when that is in that position, they're more like this, right? But it's very 80-20, right? Where it's like a lot of times they're like, most of the time people go left. But then 20% of the time people go right? And that always knowing that there's always that diff where it's like majority of people with these types of archetypes will make the same types of decisions. But there's always exceptions. And that's the challenge for anyone getting a reading from anybody is always like saying, well, does this resonate or not? Like they're supposed to present historical patterns because like Amber, I mean, I know this is something that's kind of trending right now, but there's all this talk about like we live in a simulation. And again, that's debatable, right? Like, I don't know if I believe it or not. But if we did, right? If this was like not our first lifetime, if we've been here before, if there's been lots of the same patterns repeating for hundreds and thousands of years, like wouldn't knowing those patterns be helpful, right? Like if all these people before me have made the same choices and had the same outcomes, knowing that I think is like allows you to like make better choices or have or choose different outcomes. And that's why I love it, where it's like this hidden like library of just like information that you get to be like, oh, maybe that's why this person decided to make this decision. And maybe that's why this person felt called to express themselves in that way.
I think it can also like depersonalize
Mhm.
stickier situations too. Or like if you have a
Yeah.
falling out with a friend and it's like, oh, they're going through some shit. They're not talking about it, but you know, maybe
Yeah.
something weird is going on, you know.
Oh yeah. That's what I love too. I listen to the transits from a few different astrologers every month, and I'll look at them myself too. And it's just helpful to know, like, oh, this is going to be maybe a challenging time for the whole collective, right? People might be a little distracted, they might be a little less generous. And similarly, when a really positive period's coming up, there's more likely that people are going to be open and friendly and resourced in a way that they haven't been for a few months.
Do you think do you think intuition matters just as much as technical knowledge when reading charts? Where's that
Totally.
line?
Yeah. So trusting that because I think one thing to remember, and I listen to this psychiatrist called Dr. K, psychologist, I can't remember, on YouTube, but he was just talking about how psychiatry is so fun because you get like all these different pieces, right? Of like, okay, I know what bipolar looks like. I know what schizophrenia looks like. I know what these different sort of psychoses, like things in people look like. But he says it's never that clean when you have someone come in. You're like, oh, this person has a blend of like a few of these different, they have anxiety, but they also have some trauma, but they also have OCD, right? And like, what does that all look like together? And it's his job to be like, oh, I think these are the things they're presenting in this person. He also has to consider like how old they are, what they're going through, right? What their life looks like. Maybe they haven't developed something yet, and like that's his job. And I think astrology is very similar, where in the textbooks they lay out like what are the pieces. But then when you have a client, you have to be like, what do all these pieces look like when they're mushed together for this person at this age, at this point in their life? And that's where intuition really becomes helpful. It's like, wow, like even though they asked about relationships, this part of their chart is really pointing to maybe some challenges with mom and dad when they were growing up, or like parents not necessarily being available. Like, even though that's a harder conversation to have, let's talk about it and let's see if that is like somewhere in their psyche. And we can kind of like start saying, like, is that influencing some of the stuff that's going on with partner right now? So,
What do you think gets lost or oversimplified in the mainstream conversation around astrology?
yeah, so this one, you were just mentioning that everyone always thinks about the sun sign, right? The horoscopes, that's what people know. But I mean, a lot of people don't resonate with those, right? Especially there's this there's this concept called sect in astrology where there's like either you're born in the daytime or the nighttime. And if you're someone born at night, the sun sign often isn't as like strong in that person's chart. Like the louder of the two luminaries could be the moon, right? So the sun and moon are the two luminaries, and so they say like, I don't feel like my sun sign at all. I feel way more like my moon, and that presents more often in my life. And similarly, like the a chart is full of like seven different planets and like these different asteroids. There's like such complexity to like the different pieces of that chart. The sun is just basically like the operating system. It's like one of the more boring parts, I would say, of a person. And it's definitely aspirational where people I think grow into their sun sign throughout their life. So if you would have asked me at like, I don't know, 12 if I felt like a Capricorn, I'd be like, no, like what are you talking about? Right? Like, but as an adult, I can see myself trending more and more towards that. And I think it's again, even if you understand individual pieces, just kind of presenting them in isolation doesn't do the chart justice because the different planets and placements in your chart are talking to each other all the time. So you could be a Cancer, but then there could be other stuff in your chart that like kind of go in like are almost in direct contrast to the typical conventional description of being a Cancer, right?
How has your view of other people changed since getting into astrology?
Yeah, I like people more after like
That's good.
learning about astrology because I think, especially when we're younger, it's like I think we take how we feel and see the world and just expect that other people are gonna see the world similarly when that's really not the case, right? And that a lot of what I wanted from people or from circumstances would be what other people wanted. And learning about astrology and learning, oh, there's 12 different ways of thinking. There's 12 different ways of loving. There's 12 different more even, right? Like they're just saying these are like core kind of like um lenses that you can look through and just understanding like, oh, yeah, this person um maybe their chart is saying that they're a little more like self-focused, right? They focus more on what matters to them and what's happening right now versus someone else's chart might be way more focused on other people and what's happening in the future. And suddenly like people's actions just make a lot more sense. So for better or worse, like I've done a lot of readings for my coworkers at work, and just learning more about them has helped me work with them a little easier because I understand, like, oh, this person like is really specific with feedback on pull request reviews because they really are good with the details. Not that they're trying to pick on me. It's just like
Hmm,
they love the details. So
I love that.
yeah.
I also want to touch on, I mean, it's a big thing nowadays. I feel like when people are dating, or
Yeah.
even if they're looking for a friend, like trying to find red flags or like compatibility
Mhm.
stuff through astrology, I guess. What are the pros and cons to that?
Yeah. So. I think astrology is really helpful after the relationship is over, not necessarily when it's starting to begin. I think obviously if it's going well, you can look at like the compatibility there. Um, but I mean, a lot of the people I've dated in the past, I could see like what drew me to them. And sometimes I was like, oh, yeah, like it's the story is here. I can see like how I felt about them in the chart. And that's really helpful. But then also relationships that weren't necessarily compatible, and it took me a while to figure that out. That was important, right? Like I wouldn't have traded that relationship for anything. It needed to happen. In hindsight, when I look at the chart, I'm like, no wonder we didn't agree on these things. They wanted to go left and I wanted to go right. And we were, there were some common things that we shared, but it was too many competing interests. One example that I can give that's super high level is like earth and water elements. So we're talking about like Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio for water, Virgo, Capricorn, and Taurus for earth. Like all of those signs want some kind of security. The earth signs want material security. They want money in the bank and they want to be healthy and they want to feel safe in a material sense, right? And then we have all the water signs wanting to feel emotionally safe. They want to know like if you love me today, will you love me tomorrow? Will you be my friend and like really like be there when I need you? Are you someone that I really can trust and like can hold me when things aren't going well? Like that's what these two kind of elements really care about. So if you have someone with a lot of earth and water, you have to know security is going to be their number one. If you have someone with air and fire, it's not security that's their number one. It's stimulation. They want to have fun. They want to experience, like, I want to learn something. Like all the air signs want to learn, communicate, connect. The fire wants to feel alive. They want to create stuff. They want to try things. They want to like fall down, scrape their knees, get back up, try again, go harder, and if you have a fire sign that's like, yeah, let's go out and party all the time with like a water sign that's like, I just want to feel safe, like those will compete, right? So, and it's just understanding that like, and there's always, right, with any two parties, ways to find common ground. Like, hey, maybe the fire sign goes and hangs out with his guy crew sometimes and gets some of that stimulation that he needs. And then the water woman maybe stays at home and like has time to just chill and is like, hey, I'm not going to that party and I need you to know that I need to know from you that that's okay, right? Like I've seen so many couples that break the rules, right, in terms of compatibility, be extremely happy. They're just better at identifying what they need from each other and are able to compromise in a way that doesn't rob them from also getting what they need elsewhere. So,
What placements or patterns do you think are most misunderstood, or signs?
ooh, this is great. So there's benefic rulers and then malefic. So like we know that any sign ruled by Jupiter or Venus, those would be like Taurus and Libra are ruled by Venus, and then Sagittarius and Pisces ruled by Jupiter. Like usually benefic ruled signs, they are like easily like again, like they like beauty, they like kindness, they like connection, they like generosity, they like optimism. Um, I would say like it's not like they all get like a free pass, but I will say it's like sometimes harder if you have a very malefic chart to kind of like go through the world for different reasons, right? So like if you have like a Mars ruled sign like Scorpio or Aries, this is someone who is going to really go after what they want. Sometimes like will kind of like uh, I don't know how to like put this nicely, but like they'll cross boundaries in order to get what they want. And then it's up to other people to say, like, hey, you crossed the boundary. That's not okay. Right. But there's a little more like forward competitive energy to those signs. But interestingly, as well, with those signs, there's also this what I've noticed like there's signs that are also likely to feel like they have to earn love versus that like they deserve love just by being them. And the same can be ruled about the Saturn ruled signs, so like Capricorn, Aquarius placements. And again, this isn't just sun sign. Like if you have a Mercury or a Venus or a Mars in Aquarius or Capricorn in your chart, and similarly, same thing applies for the Mars ruled ones. It's like you might sometimes feel like with the Aquarius, like really detached. Like, I don't know why this person cares so much about this when it's not that important. Like, Aquarius knows the rules but wants to break them anyway, right? And has a really hard time being told what to do. And then similarly, like with Capricorn, there's a lot of ambition there, but there's a lot of trying to earn recognition or earn approval, like in order to feel safe. Like it's a really cautious sign, but it just like works itself to death all the time. It's like all these malefic ruled signs don't know that they are worthy of love without sort of like being a workhorse or being achievement oriented. And similarly, like some of the signs that get like the most flack are actually like Scorpio and Gemini in my opinion, because like people don't necessarily, and Sag sometimes, like really they all like there's healthy versions and like more challenging versions of all the signs. But I think what often happens with the signs that get a lot of hate is that people don't understand why that sign's behaving in that way. They don't understand sort of like the root values of that sign. So Scorpio, they always talk about as like it is a water sign, but it's sort of can be seen as visualized as like a well. So the other water signs are way more open. So they say like Cancer energy is more like a river. It's always flowing. So you put a couple drops of poison in the river, they get flowed, like everything flows, everything gets cleared out. And then they say Pisces is like the ocean. So you put a couple of drops of poison in the ocean, Pisces doesn't care, it doesn't notice. Whereas if Scorpio is the well, you put a couple drops of poison in there, that well is like contaminated forever. So Scorpio is like, I feel so deeply and I care so much about people. Like, I really have to protect the water within so that people can't hurt me. Because a lot of times Scorpio has been hurt so badly because they care so much, right? That they really kind of like wall themselves in. Or like if there's someone they really care about, there's be more like controlling temptation there of like, I need to protect you, right? Because you matter so much to me, right? And like those intentions, I think, are actually quite noble. They're just trying to feel safe and they're just trying to protect the people they love. Like Scorpio is extremely nurturing, but a lot of times those actions can be misinterpreted as something else in the process. Um, and maybe like to Gemini's point too, Gemini sometimes gets a lot of hate, but I think people forget that Gemini really wants to explore and like it's able to see that like everyone's following a specific rule set, but who said that we all had to follow that rule set? Of like, well, what if like we just bent the rules a little bit? Would we get the same outcome? Like it's just a little more flexible when it comes to like seeing kind of like what it wants and how to get there. And a lot of times people are like, well, you can't do that. That's breaking the rules. But like, who said that we had to follow the rules?
Yeah. Most of my previous relationships, they were Scorpios. And I think because I'm a Cancer, I don't know, there's just, it's a very, like, they're very deep. And I think that also, because I have such an elementary understanding of astrology too, it was like, oh, well, Scorpios aren't bad. Like, the people that I've cared very much about and like resonated with a lot tended to be Scorpios. Um, and there is a deep depth to them. And I think also with Gemini, because I'm right on the cusp, and when I was younger, especially, anytime I would read horoscopes, I would resonate more with the Gemini horoscope than the Cancer. But then you'd hear a lot like, oh, Geminis are
Yeah.
two-faced and stuff. And it's like, well, I'm not two-faced. And I think it may have been you that had said this. I don't remember, and I'm probably going to screw up even the information. But it was something like my Gemini, because I'm on the cusp, that like Gemini energy helps conceptualize my emotions so they don't remain stuck in the body, but it like helps me balance them out or something like that. And that made a lot of sense. And I feel like uh yeah, there's just a lot of judgment, and I wish we could all just get along and see the power in all of the varieties.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have seen that with like anything on the cusp. You'll often see a blend of both that's anything there because it's just so close to both of those energies. And I think as well, like anyone who is judging based on limited information is just a sign that they need a little more information. Because I think once you've mapped everything out, all there is love, essentially, because you suddenly understand why someone cares. And you suddenly, like, I think being curious about other people has helped me sort of like build an empathy towards them. Of like, the more people I see, the more charts that I read, the more I see how much we are all the same. Everyone wants to be loved, everyone wants to feel safe, everyone wants to feel alive at the same time. And it's just how people go about getting those things. And I think that is maybe a great segue towards schemas as well. This idea that as kids, we're learning how to do things. Like, we're recognizing patterns and saying, when this happens, I do this. When that happens, I do this. And this works. But a lot of times, those learnings that we have when we're growing up need to be updated. And I think astrology is a great tool as well for saying, like, hey, how have you attacked this before? Or how have you approached relationships before? And can we kind of level that up now? That's in a way that's still aligned with some of that core energy that you have.
What are your favorite placements or signs, or what's your favorite bit here?
You're all good, Amber. I think I think one thing I noticed, and maybe you can speak to this as well, is that I attract a certain type of person I've noticed in my charts. And I'll attract a lot of, Capricorn placements because I have this giant Capricorn stellium. And I'll attract a lot of placements of people who are really curious and or really driven. And oftentimes it's this conversation I'm having of like, is the appetite more than the body can sustain? And is the
Mm.
motivation for why someone's working so hard truly aligned with where they actually want to go? And I think maybe that applies to most people, right? Where I feel like we're all trying to figure things out. But I do feel like one thing I've noticed is that the first six signs of the zodiac, so we're talking about like Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, there is a slight bias towards more of like what that person wants, like their preferences for things, as well as like a little more of like what is the work that I need to do right now. There's definitely like an adeptness to the now that I feel like the latter six signs, so that would be Libra, Scorpio, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. I'm missing one in there. I think Sag is the one I missed, I think. But that like I whenever I see someone in the first six signs, like I see of like, okay, how can we get you like using the power of now, right? Like get excited about like the friends you have, the opportunities you have, the dreams you have today. And I feel like when I'm working with the latter six signs, is trying to get them closer to the power of now because a lot of times they're like still dreaming about something that's like 10 years away. And I'm like, great, love those dreams, right? But don't let that stop you from like taking the actions that you need today. And similarly, like, and again, this really just varies on the chart. These are really loose biases, but I do see sometimes the latter six signs as well. And like, for example, if you have placements in the seventh house, this is kind of like the similar thing where there can be more of a focus on what will people think of me, right? Am I going to be a disappointment to other people? Are people going to like me if I do this? Like, really afraid to explore that internal signal because they're like so aware of like the feedback that they're getting from other people. It's like, no, when I do this, I can tell this person really doesn't like it. I shouldn't do that anymore. But what if the answer is like, no, you really should do that? Maybe just not with that person, right?
Mm.
Like, and this is just saying like how, and it's like encouraging those signs and placements to like take a little more risk in terms of self-expression is something that I really like to push people towards.
When people start like over identifying with their chart, I guess how do you not do that? How do you prevent astrology from becoming something limiting? I mean, that's a very like nuanced space, but
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And my answer is that it's never a formula where because life is fluid, your responses should be fluid as well, right? Like maybe if you're going through a burnout time and you know that you're someone who needs time alone at home to recharge based off of your chart, you can say, like, okay, now's one of those times. I'm shot. I'm going to cancel this social engagement. I'm going to stay at home, right? But it's not saying that you cancel every social engagement forever, right? Like it's this idea where you adapt based on like And again, it comes back to what I was saying before of like, you're getting internal signals from your body all the time about what you need. And that will change depending on what's going on in your life. And if someone's always just saying, well, I can't do that because I'm a Pisces, or I can't do that because I'm a Virgo, right? That's kind of putting one blanket response to all these different types of signals that you might be getting, or different opportunities that you might be getting in life. Like, Amber, do you agree that sometimes it's better to like work more, even if you know you're going to be burned out because the inspiration is there?
Mm. There's inspired action, yeah.
Yeah, like, and I've seen that too, where it's like, um, if someone is feeling really inspired, really motivated to do something, obviously the goal is to like do it without burning yourself out. But maybe time is limited. Maybe like kids are away with the grandparents this weekend. You're like, I'm just going to go to town and work on this all weekend, right? And knowing that I'm going to be really tired on Monday, but knowing like, hey, this is something that really lights me up, and that's some sort of like creative stimulation is extremely important to my chart. Let's just go for it, right? And we'll take steps to rest Monday, Tuesday. But I guess what I'm trying to highlight is that it's very dynamic. You're responding to how you feel in the moment versus just being like, oh no, this is just a formula for life all the time.
It's sort of like the seasons, right? I feel like, I mean,
Yeah.
I did a podcast a long time ago on like the menstruation cycle and how just our hormones sort of follow this season. I mean, whether you have a uterus or not. But I feel like because my body's very sensitive, I become very inspired and excited very easily. And then that just like is like a drug for me. And then I'll do too much and then I'll burn out and then I need to like rest. That's been a constant pattern my whole life. And I feel like now that I'm more aware of it, I don't diminish it when I do feel that like motivation because it's very like magical. It's very impactful, but I
Yeah.
understand that like this week is going to be my summer week and then I'm going to have a couple days of winter and then maybe we go into spring and then maybe it goes back into winter real quick and then we go to, to summer. But I think it's kind of following the theme that we've been talking about where the more that you I guess work with it, just embrace it. Embrace how you naturally operate and find ways to work with
Yeah.
it instead of just judging it, you know, because
Yeah.
sometimes those mechanisms are very important. I feel that I'm most productive when I kind of follow that cycle because I am able to sink deeper into those summer periods and into those winter periods, the same as fall and spring or whatever, you know. Whereas if I just kind of forced my body to follow what was quote unquote good or healthy or whatever, that's this like general umbrella term, there's a lot of my own magic that I would be missing out on.
Yes, I love that. And it kind of reminds me how, you know how some kids, I forget what the term is, but they say, especially with some, I forget, I'm blanking on the term, but they're saying like some kids really need risky play. Like they have a lot of energy all the time and they need to wrestle, or they need to like climb a jungle gym. They need to like feel really stimulated in that way so that they get it out of their system and they can actually go to sleep at night. And I think, speaking to your point, it's like understanding what your body needs versus what society brands as okay or good, right? Like, I have a lot of stuff in my own chart where when I was growing up, I was like, oh, that's good, and then that's bad. Like, for example, if I saw a classmate not turn in their homework and the teacher is making a big deal about it and kind of putting a lot of shame on that student, I was like, that's bad. I need to always turn in my homework on time. Otherwise, that's going to be me, right? Like, all the Capricorn energy in me was like, I will work hard and be cautious so that I don't have to feel that sort of like reprimand, because it was just horrifying to me. It was like, I don't want to be called out by this like authority figure in that way. Like I was kind of scared of my teacher back then anyway. And I was like, I don't want to give them any chance to like hurt me, essentially. But that over kind of like abundance of caution often meant like I would do my homework like super late at night, or I'd be working way too like I'd instead of like I feel like I would get to a point where I probably could turn it in and it would be an A, and there'd be this almost like OCD response of like, but am I sure it's going to be an A? Am I going to get in trouble if I don't get an A? So it's like, let's spend 3 more hours to be like extra sure that this is like a good quality thing at the expense of like my happiness and health, for example. And so much of my like looking at astrology has been noticing other parts of my chart that can help with that abundance of caution that I have. Like I
Mm.
have an Aquarius Mercury, and I sometimes think of that as like there's a part of me that loves breaking the rules, Amber, of like, hey, I know I'm supposed to do that, but I'm not going to. And so having a daily practice of like rebellion, for example, of like, I'm going to purposely turn this in late, or I'm going to purposely not do what was asked. It's a minor thing that no one's going to actually care about, but it's going to help me build this like resistance muscle within me to like break the little rules a little bit more and take a little bit more risk in life, because knowing that there's a part of my chart that really needs that, as well as the part of my chart that also really like, needs to feel safe materially with all the Capricorn. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's a great example. I feel like that comes up so frequently, just with people that are perfectionists, where I usually encourage them
Uh,
to find ways to just break the rules, small things, little things, or disappoint somebody just a little bit. Nothing personal, nothing crazy, but
yeah.
it helps break out of that. I guess in practice, if you are leaning into new patterning in whatever area can be very difficult and very confronting and very scary. I guess were there tools that you leaned on to feel more confident in your like pattern resetting?
Yeah, and that's why I think the transits can be really helpful and looking at other charts can be helpful. So I would know like, oh, this group of people or this person, you know, has these preferences and needs. Like a lot of times I think sometimes we cast like this kind of net on people of like, well, everyone this age thinks this way, and like anyone in this authority role is going to want these things from me. Really knowing specifically, like, I know my boss's chart, which has been really helpful. And it's like, oh, these are the things he really values. And like you can deduce these things without a chart, obviously. But again, it's like building that map of like, okay, this person really values teamwork and they really value like being consistent. If like I say I'm going to get something done at this time, I should, right? But then everything else, there's leeway, right? And so that's for me, it's like using astrology to be like, well, where's the leeway, right? This person really cares about, like, if they're more water, they really care more about the connecting and like and consistency in terms of like character, for example. And like, oh, okay, this is what this person really values. This is kind of like the room I have here. And then similarly, understanding like this is something I wish I would have learned when I was a child, but like I didn't know that as a kid you can break all the rules and people be like, "Oh, they're kids." Right? Like that's what kids do. But just also beginning to learn too how much you can actually like push people, not in a harsh way, but just like this person like is way more flexible than I even realized. Like not I don't want to violate their boundaries, but like if for example, like I don't have energy and I can't see them, if I speak to them in this way and really communicate like I value our friendship, I love you, I'm just really burned out, like they'll hear that message a little bit easier, whereas someone else might need a different type of messaging.
Yeah. Oh, Saturn returns, that's the big one around 30, right?
Yeah.
um that always seems there's always so much pressure I feel revolving around that. Can you speak on that? I'm not sure where I want to go with it, but just
Okay.
take it away.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about it. So some people don't even notice their Saturn returns, which I find fascinating. Some people, especially if they have like again, maybe a lot of trines in their chart, or maybe they're a really strong day chart. Like if you're a day chart, Saturn and Jupiter are on your team. So Jupiter is just this generous, like lucky, abundant planet, and Saturn is a planet of restrictions. And so there's enough like, oh, yeah, this guy didn't want to buy this product that I made. I'll go find another guy. No big deal. And if it takes, I don't know, like 2 years to get this thing off the ground, I'm going to keep going. Like, nothing can stop me. Like, if you have the personality that doesn't mind a closed door or having to just like try things multiple, like get up off the ground and try again, Saturn return is going to be a breeze oftentimes, I feel like. I think night charts and anyone who has any like harder Saturn like squares or placements in their chart, I'll see more of there's in that person's like mind, energy, soul, there's just a larger sensitivity to rejection and to having that door be closed of like, oh no, this didn't work. Does that mean I'm no good? Or, oh no, this didn't work. Does that mean it'll never work? And so it kind of gets in the way of them making changes to just try and learn. And so that the more I think with Saturn returns, you're just trying to prepare someone of like, this is an area in life where you might have a blind spot or be really sensitive towards. And life is going to push you into really uncomfortable situations to help you build a muscle. And I always say the Saturn return oftentimes acts as the bridge from like who you were in your 20s to who you're going to be in your 30s and 40s and 50s. So maybe something that you were used to, like I can only speak to myself, where like I partied a lot in my 20s, you know, and I remember as my Saturn first coming, I was like, hey, like I'm starting to learn this is really not healthy. Like my hangovers are really bad, you know, like this is probably just not worth it. And like having to make changes for like health and lifestyle and let those things go and again, it's not like I'm not going to have fun anymore. I'm just going to make changes to be more responsible as an adult. And those types of lessons of like, it's maybe it could have been a lesson that someone's been putting off for several years and now it's just due. You have to face the music, but after facing it, most people agree that they are a better person at the end of it. It's like a challenge that they're forced to confront, but the challenge shapes them into being stronger, wiser, etc.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, my journey the past few years has been very topsy-turvy. And I've learned so
Yeah.
much, and there have been very scary times and anxiety inducing times, and times where, like, what the fuck am I doing? No idea, but my intuition this process has been so silly because there are so many times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep going. And they're like, nope, you're going to, and it'll be great. I'm like, all right, I'll keep going. And it's been so rewarding, and I wouldn't have it any other way because I feel like it's desensitized my system in ways that needed to be desensitized, and it's almost given me more space to soften. I don't know, it's like I guess before I was fighting this place of like either too hard or too soft, and I didn't know where the balance was there. And I feel like at this point I can maintain that softness internally. And I don't feel vulnerable, I guess, to the world anymore, which is nice. It's definitely been a very like life changing phase. I don't know when they end. I feel like I might be still in it. Does it last a few years? Because I feel like things are still crazy.
Yeah. Saturn return is usually 2.5 years for most people. And yeah, it's just a lot of challenges that you have to overcome and adapt to. But once you figure out how to like hop over that hurdle, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I know how to do this now. Or oh, like a lot of times too, it's just a lack of opportunities or like other things that you have to deal with first. And so once you have dealt with those things, skies are wide open again. It's great.
Mm.
Especially like with any water signs, especially, I see that it takes a little bit longer sometimes to let the emotional wave fully process, right? Of like, this thing impacted me. Like I felt it so deeply, right? Like I have to like let myself more and I have to explore it. I have to understand it. I have to talk about it, right? Whereas I have a few friends who have no water in their chart and it's fascinating. Like they'll literally be like, oh, this thing happened. I'm like, and how do you feel about it? It's like, oh, I'm fine. Like, I guess, you know, like there's just not the same, like it just didn't hit as hard in their psyche and soul. And so like I think folks who do kind of whether you believe in reincarnation or not, folks who do choose a lifetime in this life, I think with a lot of water, really want to explore that like internal depth of feeling and understanding and get deep, right? Whereas folks who don't, then they're just like, eh.
My oh gosh, my soul always says that like we're here to feel, and I'm like, okay, but this is a lot. This is a lot of feeling to my bones,
Yeah.
and I honor that that's what you wanted, but buddy, I don't know if you knew what you were getting into.
Yeah, but I think the thing that always makes me feel wonderful about astrology is like you realize how many people have water in their chart, whether it's like they are a Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces or not. Like so many people have these water placements and have very similar feelings about feeling. Like the number one thing I hear is like, I wish I could just turn it off sometimes. It's a little too much. And it's like, I get it. You're not alone, you know? Like,
Yeah. Oh, well, to begin winding down, how do you view the world?
ooh, great question, Amber. I think for a long time, the world, because I have so much Saturn in my chart potentially, right, it felt heavy for a really long time. It felt like I, at the time, really struggling with like meeting like external expectations and having all these external signals and not really knowing myself. For a lot of time, it was just about survival. It felt like trying so hard to do all the things to feel safe. But now that I have a better understanding and like have been building a practice of leaning more into this idea that anything that is worth doing poorly, like life is completely opened up. Like I feel myself taking more risk and being more okay with failure and understanding that what I personally want and align with is important has really helped me see the world in a different light. And it's also something that I think I've spent a lot of money and resources trying to learn what I have learned and like trying to get to a place where the world stopped feeling so loud and is something that I could actually work with. And when I look out into the world, I see a lot of people who haven't been as lucky, who maybe didn't even, who still don't even realize that they're running like an old program in their brain, where they're really just like a slave to external signals and have no sense of like an internal signal. And I think for people who have done the work and made the journey, seeing that in the world is like seeing someone reaching out and being like, I'm hungry, can you help me? And so like I think this there's this desire to just continue to share what I know so that other people can advance further in their journey because like life gets way more fun when it's living in alignment with who you actually are versus what you were told to be.
Amen. Very well said. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been so fun. As I've said many times and will say many more, I resonate so much with your approach to astrology, and it makes it feel a lot more, I don't know, I just resonate with it and it feels a lot more attainable. I can see the beauty in it so much more. So I appreciate you for letting me see the beauty within it.
Absolutely. Amber, this was so much fun. And I just will say, guys, if you haven't booked with Amber, like I've been seeing Amber for years and like Amber, like you have shaped so many of like my decisions and like helped in so many ways kind of like expand my own views of the world that have really kind of translated to my own kind of like view on life and people and it's something I try to integrate into my own practice. So I just again
Oh,
can't recommend Amber enough to anyone
thank
who
you
might
so
be
much.
searching on their own journey.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. I appreciate you so, so much. Where can people find you if they want to do a reading?
Yes, my website is strawberrysaturn.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your mind. And until next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Amber. Bye.
Thanks. Alrighty, thank you, my friend, for joining and chatting. I've been trying to get her on to chat about astrology for quite some time. So I'm so happy she's here and you got a glimpse of her magic. for all things Maddie. You can find her info in the show notes. As always, I am sending you all a big hug, and I will see you all very soon. Thank you so much for listening to Diary of a Psychic Medium with me, Amber Amrine. To learn more about me, book a session, learn about my mentorship program, all that good stuff, you can visit channelwithamber.com. Follow me on Instagram at channelwithamber. Special thank you to Unicorn Heads for my theme song, A Mystical Experience. I'll see you next time.